What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I'm finally here to respond to my Make Me Choose Between Two Albums video that I posted back early April, and it's been about 6 weeks, and I got a pretty sizable list of albums that you guys who commented on the video suggested my way, and some of these were pretty easy. Good chunk of this was fucking difficult, but hey, I do it for your enjoyment. And actually, since this is a premiere video and we got a live chat over there, I will actually ask you guys if you want to send me some album versus album suggestions in the live chat, and I will respond as quick as I can. So, I'm breaking the fourth wall. You get to help me out with that. Now, I will preface that luckily there wasn't any repeats on here, but there was one matchup I ended up taking off the list because I just didn't have an answer, and it was a Sargeist album battle. Just don't know Sargeist at all to really make an answer for that, so apologize to the guy that I'll mention when we get there. But let's start this video off with Red Racer 1985. What's up, James? He has 3 matchups, and we kick things off with Motley Crue, Dr. Feelgood, or Van Halen 5150. That is an easy choice for me, and that's Dr. Feelgood. Not a huge fan of Van Hagar era Van Halen. To me, Van Halen is not Van Halen without David Lee Roth. No disrespect to Sammy Hagar. Amazing singer, and from all accounts a cool guy, but David Lee Roth is the voice of Van Halen. Without him, Van Halen's nothing to me. Next up, Rainbow Bent Out of Shape, or Dio's Holy Diver. Holy Diver. Enough. Well, nah. To me, Rainbow wasn't Rainbow after Dio left, because those first 3 albums, Self-Titled, Rising, and Long Live Rock and Roll, those are classics that I need to get in my collection at some point soon. And Holy Diver, the album that kickstarted the Dio solo run. May you rest in peace, Ronnie James Dio. And then his final matchup is a battle of Ozzy Osbourne albums, Blizzard of Oz or Diary of a Madman. You motherfucker. I love both of these albums almost equally, but by a hair, I'm going Blizzard of Oz, just because, you know, Crazy Train, Mr. Crowley, I Don't Know, Suicide Solution, Goodbye to Romance, Revelation Mother Earth, those songs still stick with me on and off to this day. Granted, top to bottom, Diary of a Madman's great, but I have to go Blizzard of Oz. Next 7 matchups come from Death Metal Elitist. How's it going? And I apologize I took the Sargeist matchup out, I just don't know. But he has 7 other good matchups, and 6 out of these are going to be battle of 2 albums from the same band when we get to them. Well, actually, the first one is one of those, and it's a battle of Megadeth albums, Peace Sells or Rust in Peace. I mean, these are my top 2 favorite Megadeth albums, but if you guys didn't see my Megadeth album rankings, then I'm going Rust in Peace. Just because songwriting and complexity-wise, it's better, in my opinion, than Peace Sells. But Peace Sells is fucking fantastic. Not taking anything away from it, but I just like Rust in Peace more. Next up, we have self-titled albums going to battle. Bathory or Burzum. That is easy for me. Bathory. Not a big Burzum fan at all, though the self-titled Burzum album's really good, but without Bathory, you wouldn't have Burzum. And also, crucify me if you want, metalheads, Burzum's the most overrated black metal band of all time. Most of their albums are not that good. Anyways, next up we have a battle of Deicide albums, Once Upon a Cross or the self-titled. Another easy one, I'm going self-titled. I'm not the biggest fan of Once Upon a Cross. It's good, but it's not my favorite in the Deicide catalog. Like, the self-titled, I'll just go ahead and say it, that would be my number 1 if I was ranking Deicide albums. And it's just got more memorable songs on there, for crying out loud. I mean, do I really need to go into further detail about it? But, there you go. Next up, we have a Battle of Death albums, Leprosy or Spiritual Healing. You son of a bitch. for me, by a hair, I'm going to go with Leprosy. Because Leprosy, that was the album that kickstarted the Florida scene. Spiritual Healing, I absolutely love. I love every Death album. And my ranking for that, even though I did the ranking for it back in December, it can easily change on a whim, given my mood. But Leprosy is fucking fantastic. Then again, Spiritual Healing is great too. Ugh, why you do this to me? Anyways, I already picked. Next up, we have a battle of Pantera albums. The first of 2 Pantera album battles in this video, and we have Far Beyond Driven versus The Great Southern Trendkill. I'm going Far Beyond Driven because I'm not as familiar with The Great Southern Trendkill as I am with Far Beyond Driven. Far Beyond Driven's Far Beyond Driven, you know. 5 Minutes Alone and I'm Broken, the big cool hits, but Throes of Rejection, Slaughtered, Strength Beyond Strength, or cover of Planet Caravan. Enough said. Next up, we have a battle of Testament albums. Practice What You Preach or The Legacy. That is another easy choice for me, and that's The Legacy. Practice What You Preach is not that great of an album. It's pretty good, but not great. Whereas The Legacy, it's my favorite Testament album, and I will say the best Testament album objectively. And then finally, we have Battle of Exodus albums. Exhibit A, The Atrocity Exhibition, or Exhibit B, The Human Condition. These would be 2 of the bottom tier Exodus albums for me, but by a bit, I'm going to go with Exhibit B, because I think it's a little bit of a stronger album, for me at least. So there you go. Next 9 matchups we have is from Jeff, simply just Jeff. And we kick things off with the other Pantera album battle. We have Vulgar Display of Power versus The Great Southern Trendkill. Lots of representation for The Great Southern Trendkill in this video, and I'm sorry, but I'm going with Vulgar Display of Power. Do I even need to say why? I don't feel like I need to say why. Next up, we have a battle of AC/DC albums. Back in Black or Highway to Hell. Oh, God. The best in the Brian Johnson era versus the best in the Bon Scott era. I think what it's going to boil down to is who do I prefer more, Brian Johnson or Bon Scott? I prefer Bon Scott by a bit, so I'm going with Highway to Hell. And not even just for the title track, but for songs like Night Prowler, Walk All Over You, Touch Too Much. Especially Touch Too Much. Who doesn't love a song about jerking off too much? Anyways, next up, this next one. Metallica Ride the Lightning versus Megadeth Rest in Peace. Oh. Why does this happen to me? Begrudgingly, I'm going to take Ride the Lightning. I love Rest in Peace to death, but Metallica is my favorite band of all time, and 9 times out of 10, I'm going to pick a Metallica album against anything else, so yeah, and also Ride the Lightning's still a classic to this day. You can't go wrong with it. Next up, we have Slayer South of Heaven versus Metallica Kill 'Em All. And that one's tough because South of Heaven's a phenomenal Slayer album, but again, Metallica, my favorite band of all time, so I'm going to go with Kill 'Em All. And plus, I think Kill 'Em All is a better album than South of Heaven anyways, and Kill 'Em All still is fucking fantastic. Then again, I love everything Metallica, well, except for Saint Anger, but yeah. There you go. Next up, Motorhead Ace of Spades versus Iron Maiden Peace of Mind. Why? They're both phenomenal, but Peace of Mind's not my favorite Iron Maiden album. It's top 5, but it's not at the top. Meanwhile, Ace of Spades is my favorite Motorhead album, so I'm going to go with Ace of Spades. And not just for the title track, but songs like We Are the Road Crew, Jailbait, The Chase is Better Than the Catch, maybe my personal favorite Motorhead song. So, I'm going with Ace of Spades. Next up, we have a battle of Metallica albums, And Justice for All or the Black Album. I love both of these albums almost equally, even the Black Album, I know. But, I'm going to take And Justice for All. Not just to maintain credibility, but also I do think it's a little bit better in terms of songwriting, just because it's more proggy and still thrashy. I love the Black Album, even though I will admit it is one of the most overrated albums of all time, but it's still a fantastic album. Anyone who says the Black Album's bad is high. But anyways, enough said. Next up, we have a battle of Alice in Chains albums, Dirt or Facelift. Again, my top 2 favorite Alice in Chains albums, but again, for those who didn't watch my Alice in Chains album ranking, I'm going with Dirt. Because Rooster's my favorite song they ever did, and there's still so many. I still love that album to this day. Facelift is awesome too, but Dirt. It's just heavier and darker and more doomy. Fucking love it. And next up, we have a battle of Black Sabbath albums, Paranoid or Master of Reality. Again, my top 2 favorites from this band. But again, if you didn't watch the Horseman podcast episode where we rank the Black Sabbath discography, I'm going with Master of Reality. And then finally from Jeff, it's Megadeth Peace Cells or Anthrax Spreading the Disease. Okay, these would both be my number 2 favorites from these bands, but I'm going to go with Peace Cells. I think Peace Cells is better than Spreading the Disease. Even though Spreading the Disease is fantastic and amazing, I have to go with Peace Cells because I like Megadeth more than Anthrax. But moving on, we got a whole bunch of matchups courtesy of Johnny Calita. How's it going? Right off the bat, Morbid Angel Covenant versus Deicide Legion. Again, these would both be my number 2 favorites from these bands. Let me get a drink. Begrudgingly, I'm going to take Covenant, because I think Covenant's a little bit better than Legion, so... I mean, Angel of Disease, God of Emptiness, Sworn to the Black, they're top to bottom, that album's great. Legion's great top to bottom too, but Covenant's Covenant. And oh my god, and this one might be the hardest one of them all. Entombed Left Hand Path or Morbid Angel's Altars of Madness. Ugh. God, motherfucking shit. Ugh. Wow. Can I say both? No, I have to choose. By the tiniest eyelash, I'm gonna go with Altars of Madness. I fucking love Left Hand Path, but Altars of Madness, I don't like this anymore. But I have to keep going. Next up, another Cannibal Corpse, The Bleeding, or Suffocation, Effigy of the Forgotten. You're gonna give me a fucking stroke here. I'm gonna go... Just because I've listened to it more over my lifetime, I'm gonna take Cannibal Corpse, The Bleeding. Effigy of the Forgotten is one of my favorite death metal albums of all time, but The Bleeding's up there in my top 5, so I have to go with The Bleeding. Plus, it's basically like Cannibal Corpse Greatest Hits, though if Hammer Smash Face would have been on The Bleeding, it would have been a foregone conclusion to go with The Bleeding. But Effigy's fucking fantastic too, but I've listened to The Bleeding more, so I'm going with that one. Next up, Testament the Gathering versus Exodus Tempo of the Damned. Son of a bitch. Again. By a bit, I'm going to actually go with Tempo of the Damned. I think it's better than The Gathering, and also, maybe if I were to rank the Exodus albums, it might be my number 2, could be number 1, because Tempo of the Damned's one of the best comeback albums ever. So I'm going with Tempo of the Damned. Next up, we have a battle of Polish death metal. We have Behemoth the Satanist or Vader's Litany. As much as I do enjoy Vader every once in a while, I have to go with Behemoth the Satanist. That was such a huge, huge album for me back in 2014, so I'm going to go with Behemoth. Sorry, Vader. Next up, Metallica and Justice for All or Overkill's Horoscope. It's unfair to Overkill because they are great, but I have to go with And Justice for All. I have to. Horoscope's great in its own right, but And Justice for All is And Justice for All. Next up, this is another tough one. Creator Pleasure to Kill or Dark Angel's Darkness Descends. I'm going based off of how many times I've listened to both albums. By a bit, I'm actually going to go with Dark Angel, Darkness Descends. I love Pleasure to Kill. That's probably my favorite Creator album, but pound for pound, I've listened to Darkness Descends more. And Gene Hoglan, I feel like to break this matchup, I have to go with Gene Hoglan to break it up. So, Dark Angel, Darkness Descends. I'm sorry, Creator. Next up, Iron Maiden Killers versus Judas Priest Sad Wings of Destiny. That's tough because Killers would be in my top 5 favorite Maiden albums. But I'm actually going to go with Sad Wings of Destiny. I have a bit more connection with that album because of songs like Victim of Changes, Dreamer Deceiver, Island of Domination. I just love those songs. So yeah, I'm going with Priest. Anthrax Among the Living or Annihilator Alice in Hell. Begrudgingly, I'm going to go with Among the Living. I love Alice in Hell, but Among the Living's my #1 Anthrax album. Possibly. Maybe. You'll see whenever I get a chance to rank them. So there you go. Yeah, Among the Living. And then this next one is another difficult one. Motorhead Ace of Spades or Dio Holy Diva? Man, we miss Lemmy and Dio so much. By a hair, I am going to go with Ace of Spades. Just by a notch. Next up, Black Sabbath Mob Rules or Accept Balls to the Wall, man. I'm going to go with Mob Rules. I've been liking that album more as of late. And Balls to the Wall, it's not my favorite Accept album. It's definitely a great album and top 5 for Accept, but I just like the more recent stuff more than Balls to the Wall. And Mob Rules is a great album, so I'm going with Mob Rules. Next up, damn it. Death, Leprosy, or Slayer, Rain and Blood. As much love as I give Leprosy, I have to go with Rain and Blood, just because there probably wouldn't have been a Leprosy without a Rain and Blood. And Rain and Blood, I mean, both albums are staples to this day in terms of extreme metal, but Rain and Blood's Rain and Blood, so... Next up, another motherfucker of a question. Obituary, Cause of Death, or Carcass, Heartwork? Two albums that are fucking classics. Again, this is going by a case of what I've listened to more, and I'm actually going to go with Cause of Death by Obituary. I've been such a fanboy of that album for years. Heartwork's amazing, but I like Surgical Steel maybe just a tiny bit more, maybe just by a bit. Who knows, maybe after I listen to them both side by side, my opinion might change. But Cause of Death's fucking still brilliant to this day. Next up, Forbidden, Twisted into Form, or Coroner's Mental Vortex. I'm going to take Coroner Mental Vortex. Forbidden, I will say if it was Forbidden Evil, you would have had a better shot, but Twisted into Form's great, but not as good as Forbidden Evil, in my opinion. And Mental Vortex is fantastic, so I'm going to go with Mental Vortex. And then finally from Johnny, Demolition Hammer, Epidemic of Violence, or Morbid Saints, Spectrum of Death. I'm taking Demolition Hammer, Epidemic of Violence. I need to listen more to that Morbid Saint album, and I need to get it in my collection at some point, because it's a underground cult classic, but Epidemic of Violence, I just fucking love that album so fucking much. But, We got 2 giant lists left, and the penultimate list comes from Space Metal Ferrari 248. As always, thank you, you have quite the list here. I'm going to go through them all, but I'm just going to say screw you for a lot of these choices. And before we get there, first up, right out of the gate, Carcass Heartwork or Immolation's Dawn of Possession. You did Immolation a disservice by putting it up against one of the greatest metal albums ever. It's hard work. I love Dawn of Possession, but hard work is hard work. Next up, Nile, Those Whom the Gods Detest, or Suffocation, Effigy of the Forgotten. Now Suffocation, Effigy of the Forgotten gets a win here. Those Whom the Gods Detest, I'm not as familiar with that album as I am with other Nile albums. And I need to get it at some point, but it's hard to find for some reason right now. Whereas Effigy of the Forgotten's Effigy of the Forgotten. Next up, oh, you dirty son of a bitch. Morbid Angel, Altars of Madness, or Obituary, Cause of Death. I gotta take Morbid Angel on that one. I love Cause of Death so much, though. I'm sorry, Obituary. But, I mean, Altars of Madness, it's Altars of Madness. Next up, Sodom, Persecution Mania, or Creator, Pleasure to Kill. Both of these are my favorite albums from these bands, but by a bit, I'm going to take Persecution Mania. I feel bad for Creator because they haven't won one. And I love that album, but Persecution Mania I just love that album so much. Next up, Corners, Rest in Peace, or Violence, Eternal Nightmare. Oh, that's a tough pick, but by a hair, I'm going to go with Eternal Nightmare because that is quintessential Bay Area thrash. So I'm going with Violence on that one. Next up, Testament, Souls of Black, or Anthrax, Persistence of Time. That one's easy for me, and that is Persistence of Time. Souls of Black's pretty good, but not my favorite Testament album, whereas Persistence of Time would be in the top 3-4 range for Testament albums, for me at least. Next up, Obituary, The End Complete, or Immolation, Here and After. Obituary, End Complete, by a bit. I need to listen to more of Here and After. Like, I've just got so many albums on my thing, I can't get to them all. And also trying to keep up with the new stuff, it's difficult. And The Incomplete, I've listened to that one more, so I'm going with Incomplete. Now we got Dying Fetus, Killing on Adrenaline, or Deicide, Legion. Now Legion actually gets a win. Killing on Adrenaline's not my favorite Dying Fetus album, though it's awesome. If it was Destroy the Opposition, it would have had a better shot, but Legion's, despite me not being the biggest Deicide fan, Legion is phenomenal, and I will go with Legion. Next up, we have DRI Thrash Zone or Cro-Mag's Age of Quarrel. If it was Best Wishes, I would have probably gone with Best Wishes, so for this, I'm going to go with DRI Thrash Zone. Age of Quarrel's great, but Thrash Zone, that's an amazing album. But like I said, if it was Cro-Mag's Best Wishes, I would have gone with Best Wishes, but I'm going to go with Thrash Zone. Next up, Judas Priest Painkiller versus Iron Maiden Power Slave. You dirty, rotten son of a bitch. Again, this one might be the hardest one out of them all up to now. Because these are both probably my favorite albums from these bands, but by, again, a tiny pube, I'm going to go with Power Slave. I'm sorry, Painkiller. Next up, Obscura's Diluvium versus At the Gates, The Nightmare of Being. I'm going to go with At the Gates, The Nightmare of Being. Diluvium's great, but The Nightmare of Being, I feel like, is a great evolution transition for At the Gates, going much more prog, so I'm going to go with At the Gates. And we got another difficult one here. Entombed Left-Hand Path or Nile in Their Darkened Shrines. I'm going to take Left-Hand Path. Even though Nile, I feel bad Nile didn't get a win out of this. And I love Nile. And I love Nile more as a band than Entombed. But Left-Hand Path's still a fucking top-notch classic. And In Their Darkened Shrines is my favorite Nile album. But Left-Hand Path's Left-Hand Path. You butter your bread. Next up, Testament the New Order versus Metallica's Ride the Lightning. I gotta go with Ride the Lightning on this. I mean, the New Order's great, but not as great as Ride the Lightning for me. Next up, Megadeth Rust in Peace or Slayer Seasons in the Abyss. I have to go with Rust in Peace, though I love Seasons in the Abyss. But I mean, Rust in Peace is Rust in Peace. And then finally from Space Metal Ferrari, this one, fuck you for this one too. Emperor in the Nightside Eclipse or Dark Throne Ablaze in the Northern Sky. The battle of the two best Norwegian black metal albums ever. And while they're both black metal, they're both kind of separate schools of thought. You know, Emperor more that proggy symphonic style, whereas Dark Throne's more of that like classic metal, doomy, almost death metal. By a hair, I'm going to take Dark Throne Ablaze in the Northern Sky. I feel dirty now. I really do. But we still got one final list left, and that is from Horror Master. What's up, man? But again, for some of these, fuck you. Next up, or the first matchup from Horror Master. Let me get a drink. Bathory, Under the Sign of the Black Mark, or Celtic Frost. Or Celtic Frost, Monotheist. I do love Monotheist, but I have to go with Bathory on this one, because Under the Sign of the Black Mark might be my favorite Bathory album. I'm not going to commit to that just yet in case I rank them, but there you go. Next up, My Dying Bride, Like Gods of the Sun, or Paradise Lost Gothic. That's easy for me, and that's Paradise Lost. I'm not as familiar with My Dying Bride like you are, for sure. Whereas Paradise Lost, I know a little bit more, and I can confidently say Gothic. Oh. Dirty, dirty man. Death, Scream Bloody Gore, or Entombed Left-Hand Path. I gotta go with Death on this one. I know Left-Hand Path's won in every other matchup, but I'm only going with Death on the principle that you probably would not have had Left-Hand Path without Scream Bloody Gore. So, I'm gonna go with Scream Bloody Gore. Swallow the Sun, Songs from the North 1, 2, and 3 versus Bell Witch, Mirror Reaper. That's not even fair. Not even fair to Bell Witch, because I have to go with Swallow the Sun, even though Mirror Reaper's a fucking journey of an album. But then again, you got 3 fantastic ones in one case from Swallow the Sun, so it's kind of cheating almost, but I have to go Swallow the Sun. I mean, all 3 of those discs are great. You know, the first one, classic Swallow the Sun, the second one's acoustic stuff, and then the third disc is all Funeral Doom. So there you have it. Next up, Quiet Riot, Metal Health, or Striper, To Hell with the Devil. That is very easy, and I'm going Quiet Riot. Enough said. Next up, Deftones, White Pony, or Korn, Self-Titled. I'm gonna go with Korn, Self-Titled, because there's still songs on there I go back to. White Pony's great in its own right, but I have to go Korn. Ugh. That one made me want to puke a little bit. Next up, Opeth, Blackwater Park, or Queensryche's Operation Mindcrime. Oh! I'm going to go with Opeth just because I like Opeth much more than I like Queensryche. Though Operation Mindcrime's a prog metal classic, Blackwater Park is Blackwater Park. Next up, oh, you motherfucker. Edge of Sanity Crimson or Dissection Storm of the Light's Bane. Oh, now I have to shit myself. I gotta go with Crimson, just because that's just more musically diverse. Though Storm of the Light's Bane's fucking fantastic, it doesn't beat Crimson for me. Sorry, Ricky. Next up, Metallica Master of Puppets or Iron Maiden The Number of the Beast. Oh, the battle of perhaps the two greatest metal albums of the 80s, and two of the best of all time. I gotta go with Master of Puppets. Dirty trick, though. Next up, Judas Priest, Defenders of the Faith, or Motorhead, Ace of Spades. I gotta go with Ace of Spades. I think Ace of Spades has won in every match in this video, and it's because it's my favorite Motorhead album. Defenders is great, but it's not my favorite Priest album. So, that was the logic I went for with that. Next up, we have... hiccups coming up. Hymns, Greatest Love Songs, Volume 666, or Paradise Lost, Draconian Times. I have to go with Paradise Lost. I know you love him so much, but you wouldn't, but I'm going with Draconian Times because for the simple fact there wouldn't be him without Paradise Lost. And, oh, we're getting classic prog on this one. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, or King Crimson in the Court of the Crimson King. I feel like just out of principle, I have to go with Pink Floyd. Even though I love King Crimson's debut in the Court of Crimson King, that's an awesome prog rock album. Just out of principle, I have to go with Pink Floyd. Next up, Behemoth the Satanist or Emperor in the Nightside Eclipse. Now Emperor finally gets a win here. Even though I went with Behemoth earlier, but Emperor... I mean, that's still they're both glorious albums, but I have to go with Emperor by a bit. And then finally, Agalloch the Mantle or Primordial to the Nameless Dead. So similar. The folky, blackened, doom, whatever. By a little bit, I'm going to go with the Mantle. I have more connection with the Mantle overall, so yeah. I don't feel good anymore. And because I don't feel good anymore, thank you guys so much for suggesting these terrible matchups that cracked my brain open. Yeah, maybe we'll do another one of these someday, maybe for a live stream, and see how much pressure you guys put me under then. But, and also, you're welcome for my answers in the live chat, if any at all. But, yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and horns high. See you in the next one. Better go in hell. What? Oh my god! That was a fail! Oh my god! Fuck that! Oh my god, I am such an idiot! That was the dumbest thing I've ever done in this fucking game! Why? What was that? Was I colorblind for a second? What was that?